Okay, so I've got a bit of an odd and highly specific and yet kind of vague message coming through. It seems to be connected somehow, which I haven't fully figured out yet, to Prince Harry. Um, so in the previous reading that I did, the last reading that I did chronologically on my other channel, It's Tarot and Beyond, I had originally intended to sit down and film, a pick a card reading, which is what I do there, on the topic of death, transformation, and change. And what I thought was going to be specific, individual, or maybe group messages for the souls that are drawn to those readings ended up turning into this very wide reaching, expansive, global, prophetic type of messaging, very cryptic, very rhythmic. It was mostly channeled straight from spirit, although I would interject at certain times, or there were parts where I was channeling more specifically or bringing through synchronicity. So it was a little bit of everything, kind of a mishmash, but there was a big chunk of it from group 1 to group 2 that was very prophetic. And one of the things that really stuck out to me there was something about a new king, and they were saying the word herald and herald. Herald being a name, herald being somebody who brings forth news or who speaks on something important. And I kind of sat with that for a while and was thinking about what that could be referring to. And then when I sat down today, I wasn't actually thinking about that at all. I was just writing notes on what they wanted me to talk about today, which we'll get into. And it's to do with the fractal universe, the fractal mind, the fractal nature of time and reality. And we're going to look at that in context of this message, because it seems to be to do with world events or big changes that are taking place at this particular stage of human development and, globally at the world level. But just now, as I was finishing my notes, they said it again. Herald, herald, and then they said hellhound, which also came up in that reading. I don't remember the context, but it was something about these hellhounds being productive. I didn't mean to say productive, protective, and chasing the demons away. And then I did hear that after I wrote down herald, herald, hellhound, I heard chasing away the demons. So there's definitely something here about someone who speaks the truth and is able to chase away some kind of, okay, hold on, I'm hearing prophetic analysis, which is what we're doing here. We're analyzing the prophecy to try and understand what it means, which isn't always possible from the context at which it's given. Sometimes it's only able to be done fully in retrospect, like hindsight is 2020. Something about the year 2020 could be important here as well. And I was also getting stuff to do with another time cycle, which we may talk about, although I felt resistance to saying it right there. So maybe it has to come after. So anyway, I wrote down herald, herald, hellhound. Then I heard westward expansion, westward one, and also the word one. So the west being one as in unified or whole, or the west being one as in conquered, or I'm hearing the word distributed. Something about distribution networks they're showing me. Okay, anyway. And then I saw a flash of the movie Fievel Goes West. Fievel Goes West, which was a movie from, I don't know, I guess the 80s or 90s. And it's about a little mouse, a little Jewish mouse who, to escape the wrath of the cats in their neighborhood, they move out west and they live in the desert. Anyway. And then right after that happened, I had my camera set up here to film. I film on my phone because it's just easier for me to do it. I know it's not as good quality, but it's just easier for me. And the camera locked itself, the phone locked itself, and for some reason it switched over to an album of pictures that I haven't looked at. One of them was from 2016, and it was an image of me and a friend of mine dressed as cowboys and Indians for Halloween. And it's interesting because westward expansion, the west being one, and even reference to Fievel Goes West, all kind of have this implication of traditional cowboys and Indians being obviously mislabeled as indigenous native people. That's what they are, what they were. They were just miscategorized. Something about Madagascar. I just almost said Madagascar. But Indians obviously being miscategorized by the discovery of India, which was not India, it was North America. Anyway, I digress. The whole point here is something to do with Herald, Hellhound. And then they showed me red hair, and they said red hair, and they've been bringing up references to red hair over and over and over again. So there's something about the red hair gene, and they're saying something about slavery connected to that. Hold on. And then now they're telling me to read what they wrote here as well, which they said earlier. I wrote it down, and it says what once was. So something about perhaps the genocide of the Druids, if we're looking back in history, the persecution of those with red hair, something about the slavery matrix I'm hearing, and it's connected to that. So, and they're saying King Harry. But it's interesting because they've been showing me references to King Harold and King Harry, but I didn't really put it together that it could be possibly Prince Harry until they showed me an image of his face after I wrote all this down. And then they said, look it up. So I went on Wikipedia and I started reading Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, Henry Charles Albert David, born 15th of September 1984. 1984, they have referenced 1984. Oh, holy shit, sorry. I'm realizing something right now because they said 1984 in that other reading as well, but I interpreted it as the book 1984 by George Orwell, which is about this policing of thought and the enslavement of the mind. So I feel like those two things are relevant here, but I didn't realize that they were both connected. Okay, then I was asking myself, but his name is Henry. It's not Harry or Harold. And I was about to exit or click off of Wikipedia, and Spirit said, don't, keep reading. And I scrolled down, and down a bit further. Where is it? Growing up, he was referred to as Harry by family, friends, and the public, and was nicknamed Harold by his brother. Okay, so there it is, Harold. So there's a lot here, and I'm still trying to unpack it and understand what this means, or what these implications of this message are meant to convey at this time. It does still feel a little confused to me, but I keep getting this sense that something will become clear later on. So at this point in time that I'm filming this, which is September 23rd, 2025, it feels as though something later on in time, maybe months or years down the line, will become more relevant. So I will have to check back at that point, or maybe we will, generally speaking, I don't know. Okay, they said go back to the beginning now. I was going to retrace my steps and kind of go through the notes, because that was actually the last one that I had written down, Harold, Hellhound. But they're saying go back to the beginning and start from there. Okay, so the first message that was coming through, which I mentioned, is fractal universe, fractal mind, the fractal nature of time and reality. And then I heard fractal nation, and they said facing north. And then they showed me a bunch of people facing or turning towards the north, directing their faces northward. Okay. And then I kind of wrote down questioningly, northern perspective, a perspective from the north, or facing the north. Maybe it's even referring to facing true north, as in the truth or destiny, or what the collective world soul and us individually as part of that collective, part of that, the fractal nature of the whole, turning toward that northern facing perspective. And then I heard cold winds from the east. And they have been showing me references synchronistically through things that are being mirrored back to me in my reality, and also references that have been channeled to something called a nor'easter. And I think that it's a northeasterly type of wind. They did say cold winds from the east, so that's kind of how I'm putting this together. And then they said, look it up. Because it keeps coming up. They want me to look it up, and I haven't yet. So let's just do that right now. Nor'easter. What is it? Okay, a nor'easter is a powerful low pressure storm system that forms along the east coast of North America, named for the powerful northeastern winds that are characteristic of the storm as it moves up the coast. These storms, most frequent from September to April, can bring heavy rain or snow, hurricane force winds, coastal flooding, and can cause significant travel disruptions and power outages. Okay, so there could be something within that description that is relevant, or multiple things. Maybe it's the timing from September to April. Maybe it's an East Coast thing. Maybe it's talking about the four directions. Maybe it's talking about the medicine wheel, because I've been seeing references to the medicine wheel, north, east, west, and south. And I'm just realizing right now that could connect to that indigenous or ancestral wisdom of some kind, something about healing connected to this, definitely. But symbolically, it feels like something like low pressure, something cold, something chilling coming up into the collective, and we're needing to face north. And north, in this case, I was interpreting kind of like keeping our heads up or looking upward. I have been getting references to craning the neck, and cranes and long-necked birds like swans and geese. So something about the durability or the flexibility of the neck I'm hearing. The neck, the spinal cord, or something up in the bones of the neck being significant as well. Or maybe it's talking about throat chakra, because the word herald, or heralds, to herald something, it's spoken. It's delivered, the message is received through this form of communication that comes through the neck or the throat, through the mouth, obviously, but it starts here. And they have been showing me references to echoes and echo chambers, and I'm not sure if that's talking about echoes in time, echo principles in terms of like this fractal nature as it kind of goes out and how it's bouncing back in this okay, I just heard matrilineal line. Something about Princess Diana could be significant here as well, because that just made me think of his mother, Prince Harry's mother, and how that's Princess Diana. The conspiracies around that I won't even go into, but how she was beloved. That northern facing perspective. I'm hearing Harry Truman. Harry Truman. Who is Harry Truman? Hold on. Who is Harry Truman? 33rd U.S. president. Something about the 33rd degree. I just heard as well. I'm not sure what the context for that is. It is like 33 degrees Celsius, 33rd degree black belt, 33 degree masonry. I don't know. President of the United States from 1945 to 1953, but he was born May 8th, 1884. So we had 1984 and then 1884. What day was Harry born on? September 15th. Okay, September. The northeasterly winds are from September to April. Just trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure this one out. Trying to riddle it out. Okay, so something about leaders, because this is kind of the theme that I'm getting here. It's like these different leaders, maybe what they represent, or the time periods that they served in, or the type of deliberate dogma that is professed. I'm hearing deliberate dogma, and they're showing me a dog now, and then they're referencing back to that hellhound again. Something about the dogs chasing away. They're showing me junkyard dogs in my mind now. It's like those fierce dogs that protect certain things. And I'm seeing Cerberus, the guard of the gates of hell, or the underworld, or Hades. So there's something, those hellhounds, the theme about a protective dog of some kind here, connected to reversal coding. They're saying something about dogma. Okay, anyway. So back to the notes here. They were saying also something about head up, shore off. They said head up, shore off. And then I wrote down some notes of what this kind of made me think of. So this is just stream of consciousness, me writing here, but I wrote to be aware and block something off, ? To be optimistic and to have that optimistic perspective act as a protective mechanism of some kind. Or could it mean to head something off or head something up, to meet it at some point? And perhaps the meeting up with that thing is offshore, because the to shore off, I kind of flipped that and reversed it, and it made me think of offshore, so something offshore. And then I thought maybe if it's even, if I'm stretching a little bit here, craning the neck, it could even refer to something offline. Okay. So then they were talking again about these timeline patterns and fractal events, or fractal awareness of these events. And they were pointing to the north again, and then they said point in time. A point in time, and then they were pointing north. So again, I'm not sure if this is talking about like a particular latitude and longitude, a point in time, a time zone, if this is talking about a particular timeline in terms of this fractal evolution of these events and the characters and the development of these characters or world leaders in response to or in accordance with that. And it also made me think of this pointing upward effect, because they were showing me previously, and in other readings it did come up, 12 noon, midnight, or 12 noon, and how the hands on the clock both point vertically upward. So this northern trajectory, something about the vertices or a vertical axis. Okay, axis, I didn't mean to say access, I meant to say axis. Something about a vertical axis. Let me look that up. Vertical axis meaning, what is that? Vertical axis is a reference line on a graph or in coordinate system that is oriented from top to bottom. It is typically called the y-axis. Okay, just realized something. I did write down something about the letter Y over here, and we'll talk about that in a sec. It is typically called the y-axis and represents the dependent variable or measures the height of vertical position of a point. The vertical axis intersects the horizontal axis, the x-axis, at the origin, forming a coordinate plane used for plotting points and data. So perhaps this vertical axis is referring to a variable, like a variable in time, meaning that someone taking action in a particular way could vary the circumstances or could change world events in a sense. When I said in a sense, it felt and sounded, it reverberated through my being, again, echoes. It's like it's echoing within me with the imprint of innocence. Something about innocence, and they're showing me that that's the coordinate plane is built something on innocence. Fractally speaking, actually, you know what? I don't know if I want to go there yet. Maybe we'll wait on that. I'll come back to that later. Let's talk about the Y in the y-axis. Maybe it's a question like why. But when I wrote down this other thing that they channeled, which what they said was force of treachery. But when I wrote down, I'll show you, force of treating, and then I corrected it with the Y as it's supposed to be. Hold on, can you see that? Sorry, I can't tell if it's focusing or not. Where can I hold it that I can see? Here we go. Force. And then I wrote the Y in, and I took note of that. I said, why did I write that Y? Why was that Y significant? And now Googling vertical axes, we've been shown the Y axis. So there is something specific about that. But right after they told me force of treachery, they said new king witness. New king witness. And then I started seeing somebody in witness protection. And then I heard witness protection versus witless protection. Protection of the witness, witnessing something and having that be a protective force, or perhaps a neutral perspective, being able to be a witness to something. It's making me think of like the observer mind. But maybe King Harry is a witness to something and he's in protection of that. I don't know. And he may never be named king, but there's something about him that has this king status energetically is what they're showing me right now. They're placing a crown on his head as I'm talking. That's why I'm saying that, because they're showing me King Harry. I can't even call him Prince Harry. They're just saying King Harry. Okay. And then when I wrote down witless protection, I heard counter code, And then I was shown a countertop. I was like, okay, counter, as in to counter something, but also the countertop made me think again of, we put things on top of a counter and it faces up. So again, it's kind of like a stretch to put these things together, but this is the way that I'm being shown it, and I'm just trying to interpret it as best I can. I may not be entirely accurate in how I'm interpreting it at this point, because I keep feeling that. I feel like I'm missing something, and I feel like what I'm missing will come later in time, like in the future. All time is fractal, and therefore it's not separate or linear, but there is something here about this awareness of the horizontals, which is the movement of linear time through space, or the experience of time-space as a reality because of matter and its movement through space. But again, I digress. Maybe there's something here about digression, the digression of timelines, or the digression of the human spirit over time being countered here through these codes, or these, I'm hearing, okay, thank you, Spirit. They just said awakening codes. As I was finishing that sentence, they said awakening codes. Awakening codes, and awakening those codes within, especially codes that have been dormant, that have been, I'm hearing, heavily saturated. I'm hearing resaturated. They're showing me drenching something that was dehydrated with water and it blowing back up again and becoming whole. They're showing me a raisin turning back into a grape. And it's not this time reversal. It's more so, it's like adding a particular element that is going to help it. And as I said element, I heard elephant. Trunk has been a reference. They've been showing me something about trunks of trees, something hidden in a trunk, like a steamer trunk, trunks of cars. All of that has been coming up. Truncated has also been coming up. And in regard to DNA, it feels like there was a strand that was truncated or cut off in some way. Maybe it's even talking about a strand of time, a timeline that was truncated or that needs to be. I'm not quite sure. I'm hearing was truncated. Something was truncated and hidden. Right, witness protection, you're hidden away. Okay, so it feels like a revival of a particular race of beings energetically, and it could have to do with the red hair gene and DNA, and something about splicing I'm hearing right now as well, gene splicing. Okay, oof. Heavy topics coming up here. Something about the chilling, something about bone chilling cold, and that freeze response or fear patterning. Again, like running up the back of the neck, being able to detect a predator. You know, when the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, you can detect a predator in your presence. Something about that. Something about feeding the network. They're showing me network television as I said that, but I was thinking more broadly in terms of like the network of energy in the earth. Ley lines, grid patterns, energy patterns of the mind and skull. They're showing me how, okay, thank you. They just showed me a mapping of energy gridding on the skull and then they kind of like zoomed me out and showed me how that mirrors, or there's patterns of fractal awareness that exist at the global level. So like the world was the skull, and there was grid networks here that are reverberating, I'm hearing, or connected to mirroring patterns out there. Okay, interesting. Now they're zooming me out into space, and I'm seeing something about cosmic, and they're saying cosmic religion. Cosmic religion makes me think of unity. The cosmic religion of the cosmos would be unity. Something about time theory, they're saying, time theory, and it's time. It's time. They're showing me a ticking clock. They're showing me an egg timer, actually. You know, when it would hit that upward position means it's done, and it starts ringing, starts going off. So there's going to be something of an awakening, or whistleblowers or truth tellers coming out in regard to some kind of, I'm hearing ancient history, like it was buried in the ground. Oh, get over it. It's ancient history. We've moved on. But no, there's something that needs to be regurgitated, brought back up, publicly spoken about, which I think King Harry, as they've called him here, seems to be, I'm hearing the word proficient, that he seems to be really good at, or he's been chosen for this job. Or something about that is, again, I don't know, but the way they're showing it to me, it's like he's got something, he's involved with this divulsion of the truth in some way, whether it's him doing it or it's through something that he's connected to, or some pattern like a butterfly effect that he's set in motion, because he seems to be a variable here, a variable that could change the conditions in some way. through time and through history. And they're showing me this ripple effect going backwards and forward in time. And they have been showing me also like a stone dropping into water. The references to stones and rocks have been coming up a lot. And I've also been seeing so many references to rock and roll. And it's no coincidence that I unconsciously chose my Rolling Stones shirt today. Rolling Stones, okay? And it's a mouth, which speaks, right? Okay, so there's a lot going on in this reading. It's a lot of information and it's still not fully clear to me. So, take it with a grain of salt, obviously. But there's something here that's worth exploring and I'm intrigued. I am very much invested in this understanding that Spirit is trying to bring me and what it means and how to put it together. Okay. Where would you like me to go from here, Spirit? What do you want me to talk about next? They said close the book. Okay, I have other notes in here, but they said close the book, so we're not going to talk about those. Maybe that will come later, maybe not. They want me to go with the archetypes. That seems to be the go-to deck. Like on my other channel, I'll mix it up and they'll guide me to what decks are needed. And it's like a whole range of different things. But on this channel, I've noticed statistically, we tend to gravitate towards the archetypes deck. So let's look at that. Okay, so the architects. Okay, there it is. The architects, something about by design, the architects of this reality. And I just heard Blue Nation, something about Blue Nation or the Blue Man Group, Blue Beings, but they said Blue Nation. What is a Blue Nation? Do I look that up, Spirit? Do you want me to Google that? Not necessary, they said. Okay, not necessary. So we'll just keep going. Something about a blue nation, though. Okay. One more time. I'm hearing one more time and try again. Counter code, and they're showing me puzzles. Counter code, puzzles, try again. 4 corners, 4 nations, 4 directions. Something about that. And again, the vertical axes versus the horizontal axes or axis. Access. I keep feeling that those are connected. The axis and the access. I'm hearing midpoint, mid-direction, or mid-directional. Makes me think of like follow the middle path. The center is the home, the heart, the one, the unified being within. But anyway, okay, let's just listen to Spirit, because I'm not going to try and interject too much with my own thoughts and musings. I'm just going to allow Spirit to speak. Okay, so what are we talking about here with this timeline trajectory? These two, thank you. The mask. As soon as I looked at the card, I heard false promises. Okay, and then I heard delivered and making it real, and it's like a truth becomes a fact if you make it the truth, and something about alteration of history for alteration's sake. Okay, we have the prayer. Okay, I just heard manifestation of the masses, manifestation of the masses. And they keep showing me, whenever I say the word mass, okay, hold on, there's a couple things coming up with that. I'm being shown like a church mass, something about mass religion or mass beliefs, principles or philosophies being held at a collective level. There's something here about a mass cry for help and mass, they're saying mass denomination, and being able to, like, the weight or the scale that, okay, they're showing me the low pressure system again. Low pressure is denser or heavier than high pressure. And so it sinks, it doesn't rise. And they're saying like pointing north, which would be the rising or the ascension, going up, right? Something about deceleration and digression they're showing me. And it's somehow connected to like this weightiness. Again, I feel like the rock represents that density or that mass. But it can also represent stillness, because they've been showing me references to... there was 2 references that came up to connected to the rock in a different context, because they've been showing me a lot of different messages connected to this symbolism of the rock. One was Dwayne The Rock Johnson, one was Sisyphus, one was rock and roll, Rolling Stones, one was that rock dropping into the water of the pond and creating this ripple effect, or the river, and the river of time, a rock placed in the river of time, and it creates a split where the water has to go around it. But I've also been seeing a reference to rocks as like a state of consciousness. So one of them was in the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I was finally guided to watch in divine timing, and it very much synchronized with a whole bunch of other stuff, even though I had been recommended to watch that by commenters on my other channel over a year ago. But it just wasn't time yet, and I listened to Spirit on that. They finally said, go ahead. I watched it. It clicked. But I'm still unfolding so much more of this message and what it means. Okay, and then there was another reference to somebody who had tried salvia, a psychonaut of sorts, or a dabbler in psychoactive chemicals and drugs, and I don't do that, but this person was describing their experience, and basically they shot through the dimensional barriers and became a hill, a rock, a mountain for millions of years. And the experience of that being stuck as consciousness, fractalized or separate, I'm hearing separated or separated, separatist, something about separatist, being separated and stuck or trapped in some way. That's been another theme they've been showing me. So this is all connected somehow. And I'm just trying to put these pieces together, but it's like something that once happened. They're saying the word denomination again. A demonstration, and something about the word nation. Denomination. Dominate. Demonstrate. Nation. Okay, so it is something to do with leadership and a higher consciousness or a higher perspective of that. Removing the density or the layer of density. That's what Spirit just said. Okay, thank you. Removing the density or the layer of density. And it's something about this collective prayer that's been shot up. And they're showing me fireworks being shot into the sky, and or flares being shot from sinking ships to show this is where our location is. Come and save us, save our souls, SOS. But also to alert. Fireworks are usually about celebration, but it's explosive. Fireworks make me think of events that we celebrate in time as well. Something about the 4th of July could be connected to this. I'm hearing the word separatist again. And I don't know my history of America very much because I'm Canadian. So I don't know too much about, I don't even really know too much about world events. Honestly, I prefer to live under a rock. Oh, the rock again. I prefer to live under a rock in the sense that I don't want to know about what's going on out in the world, so that I'm not befuddled or confused or overwhelmed or drenched in that mass collective hysteria and the media programming. So maybe this is part of the message, because I just felt called to mention that, or it came up, so clearly it's relevant. I'm hearing historically. Something about propaganda of history and how history can be shaped, how the narrative can be changed. That has been a theme that Spirit's been showing me recently. It has come up in other readings and in other places I'm hearing. Something about great nations, stolen territory, separatism, world history, colonization, something about colonies or colonizing the mind. Colonies in the mind. Something about the name Colin E. Colin E. I do want to look that up, and it's also reminding me of the word colon, the root of something. Colin E. Okay, I'm just going to type that in and see what comes up. Colin College, Robert E. Colin, Canadian American electrical engineer, university professor, and life fellow of the IEEE. No idea what that is. Colin E. Roche, co-CEO and managing director of the firm Everin Securities in Chicago. I don't know. Colin extruder E entrance. The E series extruders are the entrance version among the Colin extruders, designed for laboratory operation, and for test series in R&D. Compact lines, I don't know. Employment litigation attorney Colin E. Cressup navigates employers through complex workplace disputes in California. So this is all connected. Like, it seems arbitrary, but it's not. Nothing spirit does is arbitrary, especially when they're delivering messages. Okay, but I did also just see a reference to Colin Firth. Who's he again? Oh, I love Colin Firth. Right, Mr. Darcy. Colin Andrew Firth, born 10th of September 1960, English actor and producer. Right, okay, so something about England, because that's been coming up, and that was part of that collective channeled prophecy, the cryptic prophecy that I'll remember to link that. It'll be linked below. But I'm pretty sure something about the Commonwealth and Great Britain was mentioned. And yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts here. But okay, what's really catching my eye here, and I meant to say eye, but it almost wanted to come out as ear, and I heard the word ear, is the movies that Colin Firth has been in. One of them is Kingsman, the Secret Service, and one of them is The King's Speech, and they're sitting right next to each other in between Bridget Jones's Diary and Bridget Jones's Diary. Bridget Jones's Baby, sorry. So Bridget Jones sandwiching these two Kings movies. So there is definitely something here about the king, both symbolically, I'm hearing angelically, angelic king, okay? Whatever that means. And on stage, and they have been saying stuff to do with world stage, and I was thinking it was to do with like these major players in the game who are visible to the rest of us, like people who have careers in the public eye, politicians, world leaders, career actors, things like that. And something about the mask has been coming up connected to that as well. They're saying points and players, and they're showing me like different people positioned in different areas of the globe or across the world, and how this is part of the narrative of this stage of collective human development. But there's something that was unaccounted for. What was unaccounted for? They said the mass agenda, and they're pointing me back to the prayer card. The mass agenda was unaccounted for. And they're showing me an abacus and like counting numbers. They're showing me somebody punching numbers into a calculator. Unaccounted for, not counted. Mass distribution, the counting of the weight, the counting of... Okay, they said the king's speech and countenance. Yes, there's definitely something about the throat and communication. I'm hearing, I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you. Countenance. Something about revered, reversed, or received. Reviewed. A lot of rewords. Rewords always remind me of retrogrades. You know, planetary retrogrades. There tends to be an emphasis on all the rewords. Review, regurgitate, reassess, reevaluate. All of that sort of comes to mind in regard to retrogrades, which I don't know if we're in a retrograde period right now. We probably are. What retrogrades are we in? There's September again. As of it's September when I'm filming this, but seems to be significant to a couple of the other points in time that have been referenced. So anyway, as of September 2025, we are in a period of Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn retrograde, along with the minor planet Chiron, the wounded healer. Okay. Mercury is not currently retrograde, but the final Mercury retrograde of 2025 will begin in November. Pluto's in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries and Pisces, Saturn in Aries and Pisces, Uranus in Gemini, Chiron in Aries. Okay, I am not an astrologer. I'm hearing fixed rate or fixed basis. They're showing me the number 88. And they're saying 88 and weight, something about the weight of 88. And then the word wait also makes me think of waiting, patience, and the stone, kind of like biding its time. The history of the ancient world, they're saying, okay. This is a lot. Well, let's look at these retrogrades, okay. Pluto retrograde encourages you to understand your life goals and growth. Neptune retrograde challenges your aspirations and dreams. Saturn retrograde pushes you to resist outdated systems and build self-trust. I'm hearing self-autonomy. They're showing me independence. They're showing me freedom, something about the reference to the movie Independence Day. Wasn't that on 4th of July? Wasn't that movie on 4th of July? Yeah, isn't Independence Day 4th of July? Sorry, I'm Canadian. I'm not American. I don't know, but I think it is. I'm pretty sure it is. I don't feel like I need to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it is. 99% sure. Okay, independence, freedom, sovereignty, soul sovereignty. And they're showing me the freedom of the soul, not being trapped. I'm hearing catalyzed, and they're showing me meteoric rise or a meteor launching. Okay. Uranus retrograde prompts a recalibration of your understanding of yourself and the world. Yeah, and they're saying world narrative, world stage, stage of development, stage of acquisition, I just heard as well. Something about acquisition, acquizuzis, playing dress up. Okay, it's all coming through fast, so I'm just going to keep moving. And then Chiron retrograde can bring to light deeper wounds or fears that need compassion and healing. And since they just showed me references to both acquisition, which can be a corporate term or a business model or something like that, or something they do in business, but the way they showed it to me was like a child playing a game, playing dress up, pretending, wearing a mask. I'm hearing the word ambivalence. Somebody's ambivalent to the outcome. Something about corporate giants, red-haired giants. They're connected. Spirit is telling me they're connected. They're showing me those two things connected. Something about the mountain or a mountain of a man. A huge man, a large, stocky man, a giant. World giant. I'm hearing world giant, and they're showing me sleeping giants inside the earth. Reminds me of the Titans from the Greek pantheon. And they predated the gods. I'm hearing predecessors. Okay, but what I was trying to say there before all that kind of spun out was they're showing me the spinning of a web, the weaving of a web, or the weaving of a tapestry, something about the fractals in time being both circular like the spider's web, but also having those linear points of conjunction, but everything meets in the center. Again, it's like the y-axis and the x-axis, but in the spider web, it's like the spokes of a wheel and then also the turning of that wheel within it. Okay, they're saying the nature of time, the nature of time, the nature of time, and they're showing me that spider in the center of the web. Okay, what I was trying to say, Spirit, before you keep so rudely interrupting me, I'm just kidding, don't ever stop interrupting me, please. Your information is much more important than mine. But I was thinking about how this child playing pretend and connected to that idea of the corporate giant felt like inner child healing, because right after that I read that reference to Chiron, bringing light to deeper wounds or fears that need compassion and healing. And it feels like this is bigger than just an individual process of that occurring, although that's going to be mirrored or echoed through our lived experience, but it's much larger. It's happening at this collective or global scale. I'm hearing to scale, and they're showing me the scales of a fish and also the weighing of scales. And again, they're putting like rocks on one side and there's air on the other. Air and earth elements could be significant, but there's something about this, the weighing of those scales and the balancing. And they're showing me something about class theory. What is class theory? They're showing me a world classroom. Class theory. Meaning. A theory class is an academic class focused on discussing, analyzing, and transferring theoretical knowledge about a subject rather than practical skills or information. These classes introduce students to frameworks, systems of ideas, and principles that explain why and how things work, emphasizing abstract thinking and deeper understanding of foundational concepts with a specific field of study. I feel like that's what we do here. My readings are not practical skills or information. I'm not like saying, you need to go do this in the world. This is conceptual. And that's what I love. I love theory. And the theory of everything is my study. That's the study of spirit. But it felt like there was something else here too. They're showing me social sciences, communication studies, and music. This is all connected to it. They're showing me frequencies right now, frequencies of the brain waves, frequencies of music, frequencies of the social and collective masses, the collective prayer that is sent out. They're showing me monks meditating. And it's been proven that collective intentional thought can shape and change world events. Hundreds of monks meditating together can lower crime in particular areas, and even worldwide if done largely enough and with enough focus and intention. So these things can be done. And we need to know that. We need to know how powerful our minds are so that they're not manipulated and washed, in a negative sense, into us believing our separation and helplessness. It's simply not the case. But there was something else that was coming up here. Class theory. All right, the second prompt on Google here is class theory of Karl Marx. So let's go ahead and look at that. What is this now? Bourgeois, proletariat, means of production, class struggle, exploitation, alienation, class consciousness, false consciousness. Okay. Yeah, let me see. Karl Marx's class theory posits that society is divided into two main antagonistic classes under capitalism: the bourgeois, owners of the means of production, and the proletariat, wage laborers who sell their labor to survive. Class position is determined by one's relationship to the means of production, leading to inherent conflict as the bourgeoisie seeks to maximize profit and the proletariat seeks to maximize wages. They're showing me people with picket signs right now, people striking, people protesting wage discrepancies or wage deficits. Okay. They're showing me the corporate fat cats. They're literally showing them to me as fat cats, like big fat cats with suits on. It's really comical the way they're showing it to me, but it's quite a serious topic. And they're just surrounded in money, and they've got fake tuna, is what Spirit just said. It's fake tuna. Okay. Anyway, this class struggle fueled by exploitation and alienation is the driving force of history and would ultimately lead to a classless society. They have been, like, Spirit has been drawing my attention and bringing up themes and messages in channeled readings to do with the class systems. So now that I'm seeing this, I know it's connected to that somehow. One of the last readings that they had me do here was talking about wage slavery, workforce slavery, capitalism, and the capitalistic society. I'm hearing the word the matron. How is that connected? The matron, Spirit. How is that connected? Oh, when I typed it in, it wanted to autocorrect to the Matrix. Something about Metatronic rule. And then it's filling in the phrase the matron, and it's finishing it with protectorate. Let me look that. The Matron Protectorate quest, classic World of Warcraft. Okay. Part of this quest happens in Black Rock Spire and Winter Spring. Black Rock. Rock. Okay, got you, Spirit. Everything they say is highly symbolic and coded. This is part of understanding their language. This is part of what I teach here. I'm an example of it. As I work through this information, I hope that it serves as an example of how it might look for you, although we might do it differently. That's fine. I'm meant to move minds, is what Spirit just said. It's like the moving of minds from one timeline to another. Interesting that they just said that. But there's something about Black Rock, which I believe is that sort of like corporate mega giant that really rules everything from behind the scenes. Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing the owner of everything. And it's reminding me of that phrase, you'll own nothing and like it. And that makes sense with the agenda that's being driven worldwide in regard to streaming and renting rather than owning, leasing rather than buying, mortgages that you can't even, you don't ever really own the land. You just pay a lease that's called a mortgage, but they can take it away from you. Yeah, so we're talking about big banks, we're talking about world history, we're talking about wars, we're talking about nations and divides within nations based on class systems, but more so the separation tactics. And I'm hearing didactic meaning. Okay. Intended to teach something, particularly in having moral instruction as a motive. Didactic. Right. What is this teaching us? Not this message, but what has history taught us? I'm hearing we're being manhandled. The handle of man. Oh shit. They were showing me handles. Handlers. The hand inside the puppet. The hand behind the mask. It's not even a face behind the mask. It's a hand. The hand of many faces. They're showing me a horseshoe upside down. Omega. Could be the omega. It's the last letter of the Greek alphabet. But also reminds me of the North Node. It kind of looks like the North Node, which is, the word witch just stood out to me. Okay, magic, which is connected to that looking north, or that northern perspective, or that true north of the self, or that soul-led guided self, the autonomy, the freedom of the soul, the sovereignty. Yes, I'm hearing the autonomous being and versus the metonymus, and they're showing me metonymus. I don't think that's a word, but they're showing me like mechanical beings, robots, artificial intelligence versus organic intelligence, Christed God consciousness versus the mechanization of everything in the world. Something about treaties. They're saying world treaties. They're saying treats for the master. Oh my God. Okay. I haven't even flipped over the third card yet. They want me to go back to the matron. Okay, I'm just going to type in the role of a woman in charge of an institution or a specific female character in a fictional work. Historically, a matron was an authoritative woman responsible for domestic health and disciplinary matters in settings like hospitals or schools, a role often held by a senior nurse or administrator. In fictional contexts, the matron is the title of a monster in the game Dark Deception, and a powerful goddess in Critical Role, among other literary or video game interpretations. Ooh, powerless goddess, the power that was stripped from the goddess, from the feminine principle, the suppression of the female. Although I just heard the female ego. Dark deception. Dark figures, they're saying something about dark figures and a dark connection. Something about Lilith as well. And they're saying the word proletariat again. What did that mean again? I got to refresh my memory. The working class, right? Okay, thank you. Who lack ownership of the means of production and must sell their labor power to the bourgeoisie to earn a living. Slavery. Powerlessness. The powerless goddess. But it's not referring to women in general. It's like our own disconnection from our inherent power. Although I just heard something about fear and child. The fear of the child. Something about Gen Alpha, they're saying, Alpha, Omega, but Gen Alpha, and something about the fear of the matron, the teacher in these schools. I did see a reference to that this morning, now that I think about it. It was teachers saying how absolutely off the handle these kids are these days. Oh yeah, the handle. So many different ways I can interpret that. Handling something, being handled, having an access, because the handle can often be an access to grabbing something, right? It helps us to pick something up, or it opens the door. The handle is an access point, axis. I'm hearing counter narrative, and they want me to look at the third card now. Anima Mundi, the all. That's that image, that's that symbol they keep showing me. I'm going to have to look that up. What planets are here too? I think it's probably all of them, but yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? All of them. They're just repeating the word proletariat in my head. Anima Mundi. Okay, let me look up Anima Mundi here in the book. I know I've read it before, but I opened it to the underworld. Yeah, like where? Okay. The prayer, the seed, the mirror, agape. Althea and Anima Mundi. Okay, the soul of the world. This is what we're talking about, the world soul. Okay? All that is. Anima Mundi epitomizes the principle, accept all, reject none. Simply put, it is the living soul of the world in all its multifaceted, multidimensional layers, bonded together by loving cosmic forces. Loving. Diversity is celebrated, multiplicity is honored, and nothing is denied embrace. Constructs of separation dissipate into the wonderful mess of shared consciousness. Anima Mundi is the link between the literal and the imaginal, the rational and the mythic. It is the connective fiber that makes life meaningful. And Spirit just interjected there, and they said, you make life meaningful. You give meaning. And they're showing me an example of nihilistic thinking, meaninglessness, and the depressive state. And they're showing me Sisyphus again. So it's kind of like that hopelessness or that powerlessness, that feeling. And they're saying, you give life meaning. That is your power. Okay, thank you. This card indicates an initiation on the level of the soul. You will awaken the united. It says unique, but it channeled out of me as united. You will awaken the unique, united light within and witness how this light contributes to the radiance of the entire universe. Unique New York, unique New York. Something about a tongue twister, training the tongue, speaking the truth, becoming clear, legible in the message, in the delivery, in the verbiage, in the usage of the word, the divine word, as the one word, to oppose the one world order. Okay? You will sense yourself as a critical note in the cosmic orchestra. I'm hearing a primary wave, and they're showing me the harmonization of this wave of frequency of all of these souls uniting in tension, mass consciousness, mass prayer, having a positive effect, a variable they did not account for. They, meaning those forces that seek to oppose liberation, freedom, and seek to confine or enslave. Those of free will and divine consent, okay? Destiny is altered as you hear the enchanted melody of all living things. When in the light, Anima Mundi helps us to tend to the sacred details of life. I'm hearing to pay attention to observe, to witness, witnessing as protection. When dark, it is overwhelmed by the bigness of existence. I've felt that with this message and how big this message is that's coming through and how complex and how many moving parts there is, because there's literally billions of people here in this world stage, not including the souls that come in with them as guides. So if every person has about 8 spirit guides on average, and that's not including those who have much larger missions and therefore have like large task forces of souls behind them, trillions and trillions of souls that are here present on the collective world stage at this point in history. This is massive. Mass IV. Mass IV. 4. Mass 4. Fourth mass principle. We'll look that up in a second. But yeah, even just delivering these messages, I feel overwhelmed because it's like It's not linear. It's everything, everywhere, all at once. And it's confusing and it's overwhelming. But it's intriguing. And I'm here for it. Literally and figuratively. What is mass for? Okay, the first thing that comes up is a crossword clue. The quadrant, I'm hearing four. Oh, right, four sides, quadrant. They did bring up something about a quadrilateral in one of the last readings, or actually two of the last readings they mentioned quadrilateral. Again, tongue twister. Hard to say. Quadruplet. Yeah, there's something about the number 4 or timesing something by 4. 4, it spiritually, energetically, it can be that I'm hearing the house of the soul. It can be about protection. It can be about perseverance, hard work, foundation, building a foundation, a structure that is safe, the 4 walls of the home, the 4 directions. Oh yeah, 4 directions. Something about the 4 narrative and 4 masses, or for the masses. Okay, for the masses. Anyway, crossword solver finds answers to classic crosswords and cryptic crossword puzzles. Is that not what we're doing? Are we not solving a riddle by spirit, this cryptic crossword puzzle of the mind, and this symbolic, it's symbology really is what I'm studying here and learning from spirit, because they've had to teach me this language. It wasn't something that I knew how to interpret consciously, although the subconscious mind always speaks in that language anyway. So I guess we're all fluent in it, aren't we? We just don't know it. You're a poet and you don't know it. Okay. What else does it say? Mass for service. Helium leak detector service, sales and support. Interesting that comes up here, because they were showing me a reference to how the fractal universe and the holographic universe are the same thing, and how helium was somehow an example of that fractal or holographic universe because it doesn't freeze, or it can't be frozen. Right, what does helium do? It causes things to rise. It can't be frozen. It can't be weighed down. It can't be lowered in mass. Something about the properties of mass, Spirit is saying, and they're showing me helium and hydrogen. What does that make? Helium and hydrogen reaction. Let me look that up. Hydrogen and helium do not react under normal conditions, becoming, I'm hearing, but it says because helium is an inert gas, but they undergo a nuclear fusion reaction at extreme temperatures, such as in the core of the sun. That's what they were showing me. They just showed me literally helium and hydrogen fusing together, and then they showed me the image of a sun. Okay. In this process, known as the proton-proton chain, hydrogen nuclei fuse to form helium nuclei, releasing a tremendous amount of energy. The great central sun, the solar sun, they're saying the solar force, and something about this rise in frequency and the great expenditure of energy that this light production creates, protons or photons. They're saying something about photoreceptors and protons. Okay, so it feels like there's a chemical reaction, but the catalyst for that chemical reaction is extreme heat. Now, it's interesting that nor'easter reference was talking about low pressure, which is a cold. Right, so the cold would inhibit that exchange, I'm hearing exchange from taking place. The hydrogen meeting the helium, they just showed me an apple. Hydrogen and helium apple? I don't know. But the temperature needs to increase to facilitate that. I'm hearing the word combustion. Something about combustive effects. And they drew my eye line to the word epitomizes. What does a combustive effect epitomize? Oh, I spelled that wrong. Okay. Okay, well, what comes up at the top of the page is scholarly articles for combustion effect epitome, flames of transformation, the role of fire in cremation. Again, this death process. They have been saying something about burning to ashes. Okay, it's all symbolic, but yeah. Okay, and then combustion in piston engines, technology and evolution. And the third thing says, can the maximization of fuel economy be compatible? Okay. So something about a compatible energy source. And our most combative, okay, the fighting and competition and wars over the energy source, the source of the energy within the self, within, which is that energetic light, the connection to the source self. And the separatism and the wars and the digressive tactics and the divide and conquer are all creating degrees of separation that separate us from ourselves, both internally and externally, because we are all one. So if we're separated from each other, we're separated from ourselves, and vice versa. What are the effects of combustion? Other combustive pollutants, why can I not say that? Other combustion pollutants can cause eye, nose, and throat irritation, as well as lung disease, cancer, and other serious health impacts. For example, exposure to smoke from cigarettes and wood burning is linked to cardiovascular and respiratory disease. Now, obviously, we know that, but symbolically, the eyes, the nose, and the throat are how we sense and perceive the world around us, the reality around us. They are indicators of our location in time and space and what's going on in that reality. The throat, again, coming up, throat irritation, speaking the truth, and it being difficult to do throw. I heard to do throw, to do so, I meant to say. Throat. They're showing me somebody throwing their back out and going, oh no, my spinal discs. It's like, help, I've fallen and I can't get up. There's something here about a resurgence that's coming back into the collective mindset around the, I'm hearing population control and speaking out against something about false rulers or false narratives. Okay. I'm hearing I meant to say embracing diversity, but then when it wanted to come out of my mouth, it was abrasive. The word embrace turned to abrasive. So it's like friction, irritation, resistance. Where has this abrasiveness divided us? And how can we smooth that out through connection? Nothing is denied. Everything is embraced. The all is embraced. We have to start within. We can't embrace anything outside of ourselves if we've denied that part of ourself that lives within us. And they're saying ego structures, something about principles or ego foundations and exploration therein. Okay, within the ego, the false mask, right? They're saying something about protruder, protrusion, protractor, protruder. I don't think that's a word, though. Protruder. Oh, it is a word, apparently. Okay. A protruder refers to something that protrudes, meaning it sticks out or projects from a surface or area. The word comes from the Latin pro, forward or out, and trudere, to thrust. Thrusting outward. A rock that sticks out from a cliffside is a protruder. I was seeing something about these types of geese falling off of cliffs this morning. It was actually quite horrific. I didn't want to watch the video. One of them died, but it was like a numbers game. You know, it was a mass thing. It's like how many can get through, how many can survive. But they fell off of this huge cliff. They were jumping off this huge cliff because they had to, and most of them survived because they apparently have like very flexible bones at that state in their early development, and they have a thick layer of down that acts as a cushion. So as long as they don't land on their neck, right, the neck, as long as they don't land on their neck, they don't die. They need to land on their stomachs because it cushions the blow, and then they survive and they can grow up. Wow. Okay. So there's definitely something about this. It also reminds me of the example of the rock that was shown to me in Everywhere, Everything, All at Once, where they go into a dimension where they are just rocks and they're having a conversation, and the daughter wants to jump into the black hole, which is represented by the everything bagel. And it's to escape her despair, and her mother finally lets her go and just learns to love her without any narrative or attachment. And then she tumbles off the cliff, but that's not the end. So no spoiler alerts, but there's something about that. It's also making me think of like something standing out, or it projects out from the surface. It's seen. It's voiced. I'm hearing it's voiced. I'm hearing voicing the opinion, voicing your opinion, being able to have a voice. It is a power move. I'm hearing power to the people, and they're showing me Martin Luther King, and they're showing me this symbol. Was that connected to Martin Luther King? Fist symbol, Martin Luther King. I don't know my history. Yes, it is. It's the Martin Luther King Day. Oh, the king. The king. Okay. While the raised fist was a powerful symbol for the Black Power movement, a symbol not embraced by Martin Luther King Jr.'s nonviolent approach, it became a general symbol for resistance against oppression and for Black empowerment. I'm getting shivers as I'm saying this. Many organizations and groups, including those promoting civil rights, have used the raised fist to symbolize their fight for justice and solidarity. It's a symbol of resistance, a symbol of empowerment, and a symbol of defiance. Okay. And its association with Black power. So there's an embracing of diversity that needs to happen. Skin color is so irrelevant, and I'm sure that most of you guys who are drawn to my channel here already know that. Skin, like where you're born, is such an arbitrary judgment. Why do we other people so much? Why do we other ourselves? Why do we judge ourselves and then we judge other people? Lack of understanding, right? It's the separation of the ego mind that splits the soul from itself, where we're not able to see the truth of all creation, that we're all one, that we're not separate. We're just having this fractalized experience. We point our finger at this other fractal and say, you're the problem, but it's a mirror. It's a mirror. It never wasn't a mirror. So this is a realization that I think will start to gain traction collectively on a mass scale, to a degree that it never has before, because this is not new information. I'm not like this all-knowing, all-seeing provider of truth that's here to show you something that never has been shown to the world. No, God, no. This has been talked about for thousands and thousands of years, if not millennia. But there's a message in this message about how this information, and this more than information, because it's not just knowledge that changes things, it's awareness, it's integration of that knowledge, it's the empowerment of the action behind it that allows us to embody it to a higher degree and make those changes physically. But it's not a one-person job. It is an independent process. It is a subjective change that needs to occur to catalyze within, but it's a collective regime displacement that occurs one person at a time. And they're showing me rocks tumbling off the cliff. One rock can start an avalanche. Avalanche, yes, an avalanche off the cliff. I'm hearing the Fool's Journey, and they're showing me in the tarot, the Fool. I bet you it's going to be here. I have this tarot deck sitting beside me. Let me just pick up some cards and find it. There's the Death card, the Lovers. Where's the Fool? Where he's walking to that edge of the cliff. And I'm hearing, be not afraid. Be not afraid. I'm hearing the descent will not spell demise. The descent will not spell demise. And they're emphasizing the word spell as in like the casting of a spell. It will be undone. The curse will be broken. The casted consciousness will come to close. They're showing me clotheslines and masks hung up on the clothesline. Something about white masks and black masks, and that fist of power, and the hand that rules them all finally closing. And they're showing me that hand withering and dying and falling off. And it's reminding me of the scene in, not even a scene, but like the whole theme in Harry Potter where Dumbledore tries to break the curse of the Horcrux that won the ring, right? The Ring of Power. That just reminded me of Sauron, the Ring of Power. But in this context of Harry Potter, it's the ring, the never-ending circle, they're saying. Hold on. Loops in time. Okay, thank you. Trapped in time, looped in time. Yes, thank you. Understood. Thank you. The psychopath splits itself and hides itself away. Trunks hidden, they're saying, okay? So it cannot be killed. It's that same concept where Lord Voldemort proclaims himself a leader and splits his soul through the act of murder, and then hides parts of his soul in, I'm hearing in the flesh. Okay, interesting. But he hides one of them in the ring and in the other artifacts as well. Artifacts in time. And Dumbledore tries to break it with the Elder Wand, elder trees and elder in general representing wisdom. The great power of wisdom, the great power of our ancestors who knew the history, the truth behind this history, the truth that was hidden. Something about upscale living. But they're also showing me like scaling up. He tries to break that curse. He tries to break that Horcrux, that part of the soul hidden. And I keep hearing in the flesh after I say hidden in the flesh. And in doing so, it causes this reverberation or this backlash that causes his hand to die. But he's willing to sacrifice that hand to destroy that great evil. And I'm hearing within himself, and this is reminding me of the Buddhic theory of the demon hand. Hold on, let me look that up. Demon hand, Buddha heart is a Shaolin principle suggesting the development of a demon hand, fierce power and instinct, alongside a Buddha heart, deep compassion and mindfulness. They're saying the witness, the observer, okay? This dual approach allows individuals to possess the power to act decisively and powerfully when needed, while also maintaining the wisdom and benevolence to use that power with compassion and for good. It emphasizes the need for both strength and moral clarity for true mastery and balanced living, ensuring that fierce abilities are not a threat, but a means to protect and serve. Protect and serve. And I'm hearing the nation's greatest support system. What nation? They said one nation under God, indivisible. Isn't that like the Bill of Rights? Or no, what is that? Sorry, again, forgive me for my Canadian ignorance. My Canadian ignorance of American history. One nation under God, meaning, and as I went to type that in, it almost wanted to autocorrect it to one nation under king. Pledge of Allegiance, right? That's what it's called. Pledge of Allegiance. One nation under God, a phrase from the prejudice, okay? Something about prejudice and prejudices. A phrase from the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States added to the pledge in 1954 during the Cold War to distinguish the U.S. from the atheistic Soviet Union. Atheism, meaning a belief in no God, versus a belief in God. And I think at a large scale, this is what we're seeing with capitalism. It's like this dehumanization of people. It's seeing only numbers, only tallies on a scale, only commodities, only usable energy. And there needs to be a focus or a redirection back to the truth, which is sovereignty of the soul, freedom of the soul, the power of the soul individually, and how this applies and reapplies collectively through that mirrored effect of that fractal holographic universe and the fractal holographic nature of the world collective consciousness. Okay. Yeah, so lots of themes to do with America. Some stuff to do with the Soviet Union and Russia has also been coming up. The East could refer to China. I'm just seeing Korea as well all of a sudden. They're showing me different nations in Asia. India was referenced in one of the previous readings I did. Great Britain was referenced as well, and the UN. I'm from Canada, so that's a reference just by application of me living here and being from here. Well, at least in this lifetime. Right? So there's a lot. It's a collective. Africa was also referenced, Black Power, but they said the land mass underneath Africa, not the country itself. There was something about like the homeland and the frequency of home, and I'm hearing alienation from the home frequency. It's within. It's not outside of us. Our home is not even really Earth. It's universal cosmic consciousness. But we forgot. So it's time to remember. It's time to wake up. And you guys who are here, many of you already know this, but we're talking about mass stuff here. We're talking about getting to that mass effect on that consciousness, tipping the scale. It's a numbers game in that sense too, because we have to have a collective mass to see that effect play out, or to have an effect. What's mass? They're saying mass distribution. Mass distribution of this information or communication is important to that happening. And the repression of that information through technological advancement to subdue freedom of speech is a thing. And that's, again, a reference back to the book 1984 by George Orwell. So this is something to pay attention to. Again, we know that this is happening. It's documented already, but it's probably going to get worse. And so we have to find a way to communicate, maybe even beyond words, maybe just through energy, right? Communicating through our own embodiment of that truth. That's communication. Never discount that. Yeah, again, counting. Don't discount the power of that vibration, because that is communication. I'm not here just to communicate to you with words. I'm here to communicate to you with energy, with frequency, which everyone picks up on, whether they're aware of it or not. That's how we make these subconscious calls to action, and how we respond to our environment and the people in it. Frequency and vibration is everything. It's the nature of anything with mass. Okay, hold on. That one last thing. I'm feeling myself starting to get tired. It's an hour and 22 minutes. This is a long message, a long reading, but they're saying something about logbooks and logarithms. I'm hearing write it down. Something about mass effect. And again, that communication, and I'm hearing the word verbatim. Now, they were also showing me something about alien nations and how we can look to our star brothers and sisters, where many of us star seeds actually come from. That's not quite our origin per se, because the origin is source. The origin is source, and we kind of go off and then choose a planet, and we have our experience or experiences there through time, but it's all happening in the now. My point being is that we can look to the stars for answers as well, in terms of our collective history here on Earth and the galactic history, galactic wars, and also galactic peace treaties, and how certain characteristics can be embodied of these new waves of frequency that humans are just learning to embody at this time, or to re-embody, because it's maybe not the first time this has ever been done on Earth, but it's being done in a bigger way than it ever has before. Yeah, because this is the most populated the Earth has ever been in terms of history that we know of. 8 billion souls, and then I mentioned how many others have come along just to witness or to be a support to that. So trillions of souls. That's a pretty dense population that we're looking at there. Okay, so I'm starting to get tired, so I'll close down the message. I'll close down the reading. I hope this was helpful. I can't put everything that Spirit shows me, or everything that I know, or everything that I've learned into one video, but I hope that this was helpful in its one little finite form. Every finite fractal is connected to the infinite, so trace it out far enough, you'll find the way. I love you guys. Just take what resonates and leave the rest. Blueprint yourself, not anyone else. You are the designer of your reality in your life. I love you. I hope to see you on the other side of whatever this is in our collective world history. We'll see you there. Bye.